So, hi, welcome to my podcast. I'm Shane.
I'm Glory.
And we're here with
Eric Bass.
Aaron. Some questions about his upcoming album, I Had a Name. So, congrats on that, by the way. How do you feel about the response to the announcement so far?
Yeah, man, it's been fun. It's interesting to kind of put yourself out there when you're used to releasing all of your art as an effort with other people, and now it's like, oh, I'm the only one to blame if this sucks. So it's been really interesting to kind of take that leap, and you think for someone who's been doing this as long as I have that wouldn't even be a thing, but it is. It's actually like I'm a lot more self-conscious about it, and I also realize it's a little different too. So but the response actually has been really surprising to me. I mean, other than some blabbermouth comments, which are always like super entertaining, like I actually
course,
like
yeah.
that there's an art to that. Like some of those people, some of those trolls have like got it down to like a real, like really good art. And um, uh, I think somebody said when the song came out on Blabbermouth, they said, "I never liked Shinedown, still don't." And it's like,
You gotta give it to
like
him.
Like,
you
damn.
gotta respect the comedic timing of a comment.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, the troll comment. But other than that kind of stuff, man, which I giggle at, there really hasn't been too much pushback. And I guess I was maybe expecting pushback just because of like it's a little artsy, and that kind of thing. But hey, man, we're not done yet, so we'll see what the reaction is to the rest of it, right?
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
The album is fucking incredible, though.
Dude, it is so
Thank you.
fucking good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Of
Thank
course.
you very much. That's very nice of both of you. I really appreciate that.
Hell yeah.
Of course.
I mean, we've heard a good chunk of records going in 2025, and it's already kind of one of my favorites. I know we're still in 2024, but I really did dig it.
That's nice, man.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Of course. Out of curiosity, like, you mentioned it's all you this time around. You've been in a band for
Yeah,
so
yeah.
long. You're the forefront now. What are you feeling going into releasing it? Nervous, anxiety, excited? Like, what are the emotions?
Um, Honestly, all of those things, man. Like I think you said everything right there. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm super excited to finally have it out. I sat on it for so long. It's been done for quite a while, and just out of necessity, sat on it, and then necessity became doubt, and doubt became, you know, everything else. And then it's like, I don't know if I'll ever release this thing. And
Yeah.
so it's just been a long time. So I honestly, and I mean this, and I mean this very wholeheartedly. Like it's whatever happens with it. Like I'm just happy. I think happiness is probably the biggest thing. Like even look, if my mom's the only one that digs it, it's like that's okay. And the fact that you
Yeah.
dig it is already a win.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah, just I mean all those things, man, apprehension and elation and uh pride, like I'm very
Mhm.
proud of it. Like and maybe that was the thing that was kind of holding me back on it before too, is like I'm just happy this thing exists. Like I did it to see if I could do it, and I literally made a record for myself. I didn't make it for anybody else. I
Yeah.
I wasn't thinking about a fan base. I wasn't thinking about anything else. I was like I have this piece of art that I want to make, and that's that. And uh, I'm super, I love it. I'm super proud that it exists. I mean, it's got its scars and things that I hear that are wrong with it that I wish were different, but that's just any record. So
Absolutely.
um, yeah.
Hell yeah. Now,
Yeah, man.
you mentioned you've been sitting on it a long time. So I'm curious on the timeline of like when you kind of started working on this record, writing it, and when you had it in hand, mixed, mastered, ready to go.
I finished mixing the last track like 1 or 2 days before Brent and I started writing what would be the Planet Zero record for Shinedown.
Oh.
So
Oh.
it sits right in between Attention, Attention, and Planet Zero. I started working on it during Attention, Attention touring cycle and finished the last mix, and then literally 2 days later started writing the next Shinedown record, and then I have to produce that. So that's honestly kind of what kept it out. Kept it from coming out earlier. It was
Mhm.
just that timing, and I have a lot of responsibilities with the band I'm in, with the studio, and making sure that and I'm also one of these people, man. I'm a one project at a time kind of person. Like I have to
Mhm.
like I'm just doing this one thing, and if I just concentrate on this one thing, I think it'll be great.
Yeah.
The minute that I get spread around to something else, and I'm still worried about the other thing, something's going to suffer. And so,
Mhm.
I want the Shinedown record to be great. So I'm going to put this thing kind of, and it existed. It was like, it was here and finished and waiting. And I did go back and I tweaked a couple of lyrics before I released it finally, like, and nothing nothing major, just stuff that bugged me. I was like, oh, I can
Hmm.
actually say something else here if I
Mhm.
want to, and
Yeah.
I did that. But in essence, the record has existed in its current form for a few years, a couple of
God,
Yeah.
years.
goddamn.
Damn. Huh.
Yeah.
Makes sense. And then also you mentioned obviously there is kind of a sonic shift from what you've done with Shinedown to what you're now doing with your solo project. Was that
Yeah.
a conscious decision, or is that just something that happened when you started working on it?
I just decided to make the noises I hear in my head, like it was
Yeah.
that's literally all it is. And I do the same thing with Shinedown, by the way. Like
Hmm.
it's not like I do it with one, not the other. It's
Yeah.
just I realized, look, I was setting out to write a well, I won't say I set out to write a rock opera type thing, but that's kind of
Hmm.
what it ended up being. I set out to
Yeah.
write a musical telling of a story that I'm writing, right?
Hmm.
And so it's naturally going to be a little more eccentric and absurd and these kind of things than a Shinedown record. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I mean it was there was no like well I take that back too, but there's a bit more freedom, right? Like I mean I like to think like Shinedown we don't we've kind of built a pretty big sandbox for ourselves to play in, right? We
Hmm.
can
For
we can
sure.
kind of move around, explore the space, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I always try to on every we I should say on every Shinedown record try to kind of expand that a little bit. Like, oh, they did this time, and it kind
Hmm.
of gives us more area to play in. I mean, I think the last record opens with a thrash song, and it's like,
Yeah.
so and then it ends with a weird song that I made on my iPhone,
Hmm.
so it's like but we do that in Shinedown anyway. But I kind of took the one thing I did do consciously was as I was making this record, I was like, I didn't know what it wanted to be. Like it was just kind of like one song would be this kind of style, and another song would sort of be this, and then
Hmm.
I for half a second was beating myself up about like, well, you probably need to hone in on something a little more. But then I was like, man, some of my favorite records like Faith No More, like Mike Patton stuff, it's like
Hmm.
that dude just does whatever,
Mhm.
Exactly. Yeah.
whatever style comes to mind, is what happens. Or like a Devin Townsend, right? He makes a lot of concept records. Like everything he makes is a concept record. So,
Yeah.
and he doesn't have there's no rules. And so
Hmm.
I guess that's basically more it. It was like just having that conversation with myself that there really are no rules with this and just make something you love. And I listen to so many different things and love so many different things. And um, it's just like just whatever feels good to you at the time, just do it, whatever that is. So
Damn right. I love
Absolutely.
it. Great approach. So, is there any meaning behind the album title or cover art?
yeah, so uh we really have two protagonists in this story. And
Hmm.
and again, this story that exists for this record will be out in a graphic novel probably about this time
So
next
great.
year. It'll probably be fourth quarter. So
Hmm.
this whole thing is a result of a story that
Hmm.
that that exists. Um, we really have two protagonists, a girl named Azalea and this kid named Milk. Milk is his nickname. He has a tattoo on his face that's M1LK, and so all the kids just call him Milk. But he
Yeah.
he doesn't have any memory of what his name is. He's
Yeah.
been in this prison camp. He got sent to like this prison work camp that some of
Hmm.
the kids in this world get sent to, and he's been there since he was like 6 years old. And now he's 12 or 13, and he just has no real memory of what his real name was. So there's a moment at the end of the record, toward the end of the record, where he's sort of and this story is kind of like littered with like faith, religious overtones and
Hmm.
stuff. Not necessarily Christian overtones, but just like the faith is a big theme in this story. Is one of the main theme, one of the big themes in the story.
Okay.
Um, but he's kind of saying this prayer at the end. It's at the end of one of the songs, and the last thing he says is, I had a family and I had a name.
Hmm.
And like he's just saying, like, like I'm fighting for these things that I know
Hmm.
that I once had, right? I had a family at one point, and I had a name at one point. So
Hmm.
it just seemed like I went around and around about what to call the book and to call the record, and um, uh, I settled and I had a name. I thought it was pretty cool, and I think I'm pretty sure the book will have the same name as well. So
Hmm.
the cover art is I'm big into iconography.
Hmm.
I love symbols and this kind of
Yep.
thing. So I made those symbols for each character in the who are represented in the record, I guess I should say. That's the best way to put it. There are a lot of characters that aren't represented on the record, but
Yeah.
so each one of those characters has a kind of an icon that goes with them, and um, so and then there's a flower on the cover as well that will play into the story. I don't want to give too much away, but but I don't want to spoil the whole story by telling everybody what everything means.
Yeah.
But that flower plays a big, pretty big part in our story as well. So
Yeah.
um, it's yeah, that's kind of that's sort of the thing. And then I hand wrote everything, all the lyrics in
Mhm.
the album cover and on the cover art, like all the writing is all handwritten stuff. So um, yeah, it just kind of gives it more of a personal touch, I guess, because it comes from, I handwrite all my lyrics. I handwrite, like I don't write lyrics on a phone or on a computer, like I pen to paper
Mhm.
type thing. And so, I have this journal um that I conceived this story and that I also write lyrics in and everything
Mhm.
else. And so, everything scribbles and this kind of thing.
Yeah.
So even those even those symbols are like all symbols that I drew in a notebook,
Mhm.
originally, and then kind of honed them into something else. But so yeah, I just felt like that's maybe what I should do. So that's kind of a little bit of the story of the artwork. The artwork that's inside of the gatefold on the vinyl, the actual character drawings, a couple of which have been put up online at this point. I think the Azalea and Devar, and Devar's the bad guy that I
Mhm.
play in the Mind Control video. But those two pieces of artwork have been put out, and the rest of them, of course, will be at some point. But my good friend Rob Pryor, Prior, if anybody wants to look him up, Rob Pryor, he's a fantastic like pop culture artist slash
Mhm.
fantasy artist, and he and his apprentices at his studio did all of that artwork for me and helped me kind of uh, put concept art together, because it's interesting when you have something in your head, like these characters have lived animated in my head for so
Mhm.
long, and it's trying to like get them out when I can't really draw like that,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and trying to get them to see the light of day. And the interesting thing about that is that a couple of the characters, like Milk, the character of Milk looks exactly like the drawing looks exactly like how I picture him in my head, like
That's so good.
1000%.
Yeah.
Um, but like Azalea, morphed a little bit in the process, and those kids and the kids in his studio showed me like something I hadn't thought about, and
Mhm.
it's like,
Mhm.
oh wow, I really like that,
Yeah.
and it's interesting how these things just kind of become what they were always meant to be. But um, yeah, the art, the visuals for this project are pretty huge,
Mhm.
naturally. It was a graphic novel, um, so it's been interesting kind of taking that artwork stuff into like live action videos too. It's been a whole other thing. But yeah, that's a little bit of the I guess that's a lot of the history of the artwork and the album title. So
Yeah.
there you
Yeah.
go.
Oh my goodness. That is incredible to hear. Just everything that you're kind of working through. It sounds like kind of like a creative's wet dream almost, because you're able
Yeah.
to go from graphic novel to audio, and making it
Yeah.
into a full-fledged album, to then music videos. You're able to kind of just flesh everything out and get your entire mind baby just out into the world. That's fucking awesome.
It is awesome. It can be, it's daunting too. I mean,
Mhm.
it's
Yeah.
fun. It's fun to be able to do it, but it's also I'm super hard on myself. Like
Hmm.
I'm not very nice to my inner voice isn't necessarily kind, so I'm always like beating myself up about trying to get all this stuff out.
Yeah.
It's doing a record is like a lot. Writing a book
Hmm.
is a lot. Doing videos is a lot, and it's
Of
like
course,
let's do
yeah.
all of those things and do a new Shinedown record while you're doing that.
Why
You know,
not?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, currently too, it's
Yeah.
like it's kind of like
Yeah.
taking up the space of a couple of Shine records. So,
Hmm.
um, but yeah, it's a blessing, man, to be able to get these things out, and yeah, I have to remind myself of that when it gets really difficult. It's like,
Hmm.
hey, man, this is like, you know. You're doing like a kid's job, you're doing like a like something that like every 12-year-old wants to do, and so
Absolutely.
just stop complaining about it.
That's fucking awesome.
So can you tell us a little bit about your writing process for the album?
Writing process for the album. Yeah. So, well, I mean, I can give you a little bit, it might be more of like a history lesson here, but if you
Ooh,
want that,
okay.
if you want the
That's
whole
fine.
story,
Fuck yeah.
uh, so like 2018, the first Shinedown tour we did for the Attention record in Europe. Um, so whenever that was, it was springtime. I know that because the weather was nice in Europe, which is better than touring there in the winter for
I was
sure.
gonna say, yeah.
Um, it was festival season, right? So yeah, it was. But I was in Milan, Italy, in a hotel room, and I just gotten done doing a workout, and you know, and anyone who's ever had something like this happen will totally understand what I'm saying. Those who haven't will think it's weird. But I got done with the workout. I'm watching a couple of YouTube videos, just random things, and this voice that's not mine, like some other, like I literally didn't have this thought, like it was
Mhm.
placed in my brain, said you might want to write this down.
Hmm.
And I picked up my journal and I just started writing this story about this particular character. And I spent the next 2 hours just laying out this world and kind of what's going on in this world. And ultimately, what would end up being the sort of the prequel story to the story I'm telling.
Mhm.
I didn't know it was a prequel story at that point. I thought it was, but it's very pivotal to the creative process of writing this stuff down.
Mhm.
Um, and so wrote that stuff down the next day. And I've never been a comic book guy either. Like I'm interestingly enough, like I mean, I had comics when I was a kid, but it was never something that really made me tick, which is super weird. And I'm sitting here going like, I got to write this graphic novel. Like this is like I'm like all of a sudden just like this is what I have to do. It was this
Yeah.
mission I was placed on. I didn't ask for it. It was like you're going to do this thing.
Yeah.
So the next day I called my buddy Eric Rickert, who is he's been my assistant here at the studio. He's assistant engineered the last couple of Shinedown records with me and
Dope.
one of my greatest friends, but he is a comic book fanatic nerd. Like
Mhm.
he gets comics delivered to his house every month and he reads all of them.
Oh,
He
yeah.
keeps up with
Awesome.
all the storylines and everything, right? So I was like, look, man, like I'm a story snob. Like, what are some like, and by the way, never really written a story,
Mhm.
but I want whatever I do to be really great. I was like, what are some really great graphic novels to read? And he gave me some suggestions, some Alan Moore stuff, and Saga was another one that he gave me, and so I kind of dug into these things a little bit and to kind of see what story was like in these things, and um, so that kind of started the process. And then along the way, as I was kind of flushing that thing out, along the way, I realized that some of my characters that I put on the periphery around this one main character that I'd started writing about, they were more interesting than the main character, and so that's what led me to where I am now with this story with Milk and Azalea and these other characters that were kind of supposed to be part of the gang. It's like, well, these two characters are way more interesting to me.
Yeah.
And so I really took them on and started writing their story. Um, but at the same time, on the Attention tour, not that Europe tour, but later on in the touring of the record, probably 20 late 2018 into 2019,
Mhm.
Mhm.
I just started messing around with some pieces of music and was hearing melodies and kind of flushing out some things. One of those things is I kind of became the song Azalea, and there's a song on there called "Can't Go Home." That was one of them that I was messing with. Um, and so I went to Brent and I was like, "Hey, are you ready to start writing a Shinedown record? Because I got these things that are, these pieces of music that I'm messing with, and I'm hearing melodies and a couple of lyrical ideas that wouldn't work for Shinedown because I was thinking about this story.
Yeah.
But look, for me personally, I always try to throw all of my stuff into Shinedown. That's just always
Yeah.
what's always been. And he was like, I'm absolutely not ready to start writing a record, so have at it. And I was like, well, I'm going to use these things for something else, and so I just started kind of tooling on these things on tour. And it's the only time I've ever taken Pro Tools out on tour. Like this is the only time this has ever happened. Um, and I just kept messing around with them, man. I think Churches of the Dead was one of the songs that I messed with on out there. Um, and I had definite melodies and I started to mess with lyrics some. But it wasn't until I got back here to the studio at home is where I can really concentrate on lyrics. Lyrics are something that I have to just kind of channel and let happen.
Mhm.
And yeah, so the lyrics started to come and they came really easily, which was odd to me because I was writing about characters. I wasn't writing about me. And the thing is with lyrics is, at least for me personally, what I've found is that the stuff that really happens naturally is the stuff that's really honest and like you've lived it. It's really easy to write things you've lived once you're in that space. I'm not saying it's always easy to like conceptualize something, but once you kind of get you lock into an idea of something you've experienced or something you've seen or know,
Hmm.
then the lyric writing can tend to be really, really easy.
Yeah.
Or just not easy. It's never easy. Natural. It can
There
kind
you
of
go.
flow.
Hmm.
And I'm sitting here going, why is this so like seamless? Because I should be like you're writing about these fictitious characters, you know.
Hmm.
Um, uh, and so I got a set of songs done, and I thought I had the whole thing done, actually. I thought I had the whole record done, and I was listening back. It's the first time I listened back to like what I had put together, not mixed, but just put together,
Hmm.
and then realized I was missing some elements for sure, like some heavy elements, some other things. So I went back to the drawing board and I wrote a couple more songs like Good Night, and um, uh, Dead Inside, and a couple other things. One other that I wrote. It might have been Hey Kids, which wasn't a or uh, it's not called Hey Kids. That's what it's called when I was working on it. All Good Children, and even though that's not a heavy song, but anyway, at some point I listened back to everything, and you realize that all the elements were there for the record, and then I had this moment of like you had this thing where you have a realization about something shocking and it kind of ice through your veins. You're like you didn't realize this thing that was right in front of you the whole time. It was like
Yeah.
almost like when you forget something you're supposed to like
Hmm.
you forgot an appointment you had and you're like oh
Oh, yeah.
I was listening to Good Night, which is probably the most personal song to me on the record,
Mm.
and like I had that moment of like oh crap man, like you just wrote the most autobiographical record that you've ever written
Hmm.
through characters and through these characters' scenarios and these characters' personalities. And then I
Yeah.
realized it's like, oh, every one of these characters is a part of your psyche, and every one of these
Hmm.
characters is something you wanted to say.
Hmm.
This, and by the way, this has nothing to do with the graphic novel. This is just the songs. Like
Yeah.
I realized what
Yeah.
I was saying about these characters in the songs because the songs are snapshots from the story.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Like they're not telling the whole story all the way through. I'm just taking scenarios and scenes and kind of writing about it.
Of course. Yeah.
And I realized that it's like, man, you just the things you're saying in this, you know, anytime you're writing through one of these characters, the things you're saying is you,
Hmm.
every single bit of it. And, somebody like a character like Devar and the villain is like the depression that I deal with and the confusion and
Hmm.
some of the neurodivergence and that stuff and the things that make life really difficult for me can be difficult, depends on how you look at it. But and a character like Milk who's trying to he's just wondering what happened to him. He had this childhood at one point, and now, and I think we all kind of have this weird desire, if we had a good childhood, to kind of go back and do some things again, right?
Hmm.
Azalea struggling with her faith and with you know uh, feelings of wanting to give up, and these
Hmm.
there are all these themes that crept in, and I was like, holy crap, man, you just like that's why it was so easy to write, because I'm writing, yeah, I thought I was writing about these characters and I am, but these characters are me, and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like so I'm feeling every one of the scenarios they're in and am like just as if it's me, right? And so
Hmm.
um it was a very interesting, that was probably the most interesting part of the writing process, was that realization. It wasn't really the writing of the stuff. I mean, that's just kind of what I do, right? I make things and I make music and I put lyrics on top of it and I sing it, and I've been doing this for a while, maybe not as a solo artist, but been doing it for a long time.
Hmm.
And when you're writing, like when we're writing with Shinedown, we do the same thing. We don't ever really make up fictitious stories. We have, we write things that we know,
Yeah.
but that's what you're doing. So it's not like a symptom of being human. I'm writing that song about my depression and what it
Hmm.
feels like, and kind of trying to relate it to other people. Like, I know you feel this way too, right? So, but I'm conscious that that's what I'm doing. Um, and so there was something else to realize, that like there was this sort of like sneaky backdoor way of doing that I was doing to
Hmm.
myself that I didn't know I was doing. So,
Yeah.
um, in essence, that was the writing process. And there's a lot of the the pros and cons of doing a record by yourself are the same thing. Like the pros are the same thing and the cons are the same thing, which is you're by yourself.
Yeah.
Hmm.
You know, and so the pros of doing it is I can entertain all of my absurdities and say whatever I want to say and write whatever I want to write,
Mhm.
um, and I'm by myself and I don't have to worry about anybody else's opinion. The
Mhm.
con is that I'm by myself, I'm entertaining my absurdities,
Yep.
and I don't have anybody to bounce anything off of,
Mm-mm.
and I have to solely decide if this is good or bad
Mhm.
without any, like if Brent and I are writing Shinedown stuff, and I can say, hey, is that good? Does that say the thing? What? And he'll be like, nah, maybe we need to search a little more for a better hook, or and he'll ask me the same things, and eventually we land where we land, and we both look at each other and go, either this is great or this is as good as it can be. One of the two.
Yeah.
And and we move on to the next thing. With this stuff, it's I'm just sitting here by myself going, man, I think it's good. I don't know.
Yeah.
So that makes the writing process a little different for sure. And it it,
Mhm.
it is a lot more I have a I'm very um uh what's the rejection adverse, like I've
Mhm.
always been that way, like rejection sensitivity of
Yeah.
an
Yeah. Yeah.
ADD kid.
Yeah.
And so uh like when you're playing that's your stuff, I don't have anybody else to hide behind. Like when I'm playing a Shinedown
Mhm.
track, I'm like, yeah, this is what we think is good. So you can just all,
Exactly. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and I'm playing my stuff and I'm like, God, I hope people like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like a whole different attitude.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But yeah, man, it's a different process in certain ways, and in other ways, not at all. Like
Mhm.
again, the channeling the lyrics is exactly the same. Like,
Mhm.
I have a tendency to, I'm doing it right now. Like I look out of the window at the control room or any room I'm in writing lyrics. If I'm in any writing room or something, I love to find a window and
Mhm.
then just stare out of it at nothing.
Mhm.
And then there's something about that staring at nothing, like a leaf on a tree or a mountain in the distance or a building or whatever. And like the stuff starts to happen and come in.
Yeah.
So that part, that's the same. It's just,
Hmm.
I'm just by myself rather than in a room with others. So.
Yeah. Now, you also produced and mixed the album yourself. Did you struggle at all with knowing when to stop in that aspect? Because, like, obviously, writing you're by yourself, you have no one to bounce off of. But producing, mixing, did you struggle with that by yourself at all?
Yeah, so I'm notoriously like a loner in the studio. So even when I'm doing Shinedown Records, I'm pretty much by myself with that
Gotcha.
stuff.
Mhm.
And I notoriously will go way too far and have to like come back.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I've overcooked it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, yeah, I got to come back. So
Yeah.
that stuff happens. I go way beyond diminishing returns every day,
Mhm.
especially when I'm mixing. You know, um, and so that's just par for the course for me, like overthinking and in fact, I was talking to my buddy Owen Hamilton, who was the director of photography on the videos. He was color grading the Azalea video last night, uh, and I looked at him and I said, why do we do that? Why do we do that thing where you get to a point where like you get what I call the fizz, right? It's like it's perfect.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, now I'm gonna mess with it some more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's like he was talking about as a director of photography, like he'll pull the camera off the truck, look through the lens. Oh my God, it's magic.
Mhm.
This is magical, except for this one thing over here. Let me move this
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
then this, and then you look up 10 minutes later, you look through the viewfinder, and the whole thing's gone, and you
Yeah.
don't know where it went, and you'll never get it back.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
I think all artists kind of do that. It's very difficult to just go, that's it.
Mhm.
I do some painting and stuff too, and it's like it's the same thing with that. Like I should stop right now,
Mhm.
but this, and then 2 hours later, you've ruined the whole thing.
Yeah.
So um, that is definitely a thing with me, and it definitely happens. It happened on this record. I talked about changing some lyrics, right? So
Mhm.
I actually changed some lyrics um, that I was unsure about, and had the whole thing was mastered and everything, and then I'm like, I really want to change that back.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
shouldn't have messed with it. And you know what I did? I went back and took it back to how it originally was, and it's like that's it. And it felt great.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
even things like that, it's like, the I it there's something almost disingenuous about that when you start picking at it too much. It becomes
Mhm.
too perfect, and you realize that like uh you know what is it? Voltaire said the perfect is the enemy of the good.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so you you pick at it too much and it gets bad. It gets terrible. So you have to leave scars on things and things you don't like. And that's what I've done with this record for sure. Eventually, like I just resigned myself to the fact that this is what your voice sounds like, dude. Like you can like it or not. It's you're not Daryl Palumbo, you're not Brent Smith, you're not Zach De La Rocha, in Chris Cornell. Like you're never going to be these great singers, So just like just this is what it is. You
Yeah.
love it. Like this is it, And for the instrumentation too, like, my drum, I'm a very like uh kind of stock drum sort of person, like I don't have all these great drum fills all over the record. They're just drum fills. They just do the drum fill thing.
Yeah.
I need a drum
Yeah.
fill here it is.
Yeah.
And I could beat myself up about how it could be so much better, and it probably could be so much better, but it just needs to be what it is, and eventually you just abandon it and move on.
Yeah. It
There you
does
go.
the job, and that's what matters.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
absolutely. And you just always have to remember that you are your own worst critic. So it's like I don't think your fans and the listeners who are approaching this record for the first time are going to be like, "Wow, that drum fill didn't really do the drum fill thing that I
Yeah.
wanted it to." They're going to just
Right.
enjoy it and acknowledge it and go, "Oh, that fucking rocked," and
Yeah,
just
well, I
move
appreciate
on.
that. Yeah, and
You
you're
know?
absolutely right. We do that to ourselves, right? We
Mhm.
we concentrate on a piece of minutia that no one else is going to see. I was doing it again, color grading the video last night, and there are and by the way, my world is not necessarily in outer space, but the joke with filming the videos was like, well, there are no cars in space,
Yeah.
there are no dogs in space, there are no garage doors in space,
Mhm.
there's no, and so last night, like. I had this one shot where you can see this car in the background, and I'm like
Mhm.
we're trying to like blow it out so you can't see the car, but I can still kind of see the car,
Yeah.
You're like, damn
And
it.
it's in this scene that
look
just
really
flies by
hard.
like
Yeah.
my wife, who had watched the video before I did any of the color grading, she's like, I never saw cars before you did that. Like, what are
Yeah.
but I get so fixated on that thing,
Mhm.
I was just doing it just now. Like right now, currently that video is uploading now so it can get out of my life, right?
Yeah.
But like that's why I was late to this thing because I'm staring at it going, she doesn't look right in this thing. I'm literally doing this right up until I got on with you guys,
Yeah.
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 and I'm just like, it's never gonna be good enough for me. No one else is gonna notice.
Yeah.
I know how the sausage was made. That's why I see it.
Exactly.
And yeah, so it's a difficult thing to just kind of abandon the thing and go,
Mhm.
look, you're not James Cameron, dude. Like, just
It's okay.
Yeah.
just put it out there.
Yeah.
It's fine. This is the
Yeah.
first video you've ever made or the second video you've ever made. Just
Yeah.
let it go. I know we jumped from music to videos,
No.
but it's all been part of the process for me, like the whole
Exactly.
thing. So,
Absolutely.
That's all that matters. Mhm.
yeah.
So, what song off the album took the longest to write, and then which one is your personal favorite?
Which one took the longest to write? It's a good question about which one took the longest.
Yeah.
Um, I know which one took the longest to get right. I don't know if it took the longest to write.
Yeah.
Um,
That works.
there's a song called New Graves, which has a bunch of kids singing in the chorus. And there's been this balance, and it happens on the first heavy track on the record too, which is New Gods of War. Both of them new. But where I'm singing with these groups of people, right? And in a lot of cases, I am the group of people. I'm like I actually did get my sisters to come in and help me sing on some of the big choiry
That's awesome.
operatic stuff, and then those are my
Yeah.
nieces and nephews singing with me on the
Oh.
on the because I tried to do it where I pitched my voice around and it just sounded like South Park kids. But that stuff's still in there actually, like it's still in there. But then I had to bring the other kids in. You
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
bring my nieces and nephews in.
Mhm.
And they sing that stuff with me too on there's a song called Can't Go Home that they sing on too. But that stuff where it's my voice married with other voices, it's like, I kind of like getting it right of like, okay, this is a group of people singing, but you still want like a voice on top of it
Mhm.
and like my voice on top of it. But I think I ended up in a place where it's just all like a conglomeration of voices and there's no real like I'm not singing the chorus. This group of people is singing the chorus, right?
Mhm.
That took a long time to kind of get right and to come to terms with, I think, for me. Um, I would say probably Azalea. That song, actually, yeah. Now that I'm thinking about it, that probably was the most difficult to write
Mm,
because um, I was super precious with that one. I usually try not to be too precious with things, but that one I really liked the licks and the riffs in it, and
mhm,
um, uh, I kind of put that one together in a way where it was very kind of untraditional, where normally I kind of have it all planned out, and that piano breakdown in the middle, I would have already known that was going to be there, and
mhm,
um, I started with that quirky synth riff in the beginning and drum machiney stuff, and um, uh, and then I say, laid down this heavy guitar riff for the chorus or whatever, like it is now. Um, but there was no real melodic ideas for it. Like,
mm,
I kind of knew this was going to be like a song about her, but it was like I didn't have any ideas. And I think I wrote, in fact, I don't think I wrote uh, an entire verse, like, I mean, verse lyrics completely done.
mhm.
And the second I went to sing them, I was like, this isn't right. Like,
Yeah.
it sounded right. I mean, it was right enough for me to go through the whole process of this different melody with this different rhythm for the verses. And it just like, it was like, oh, this is not good. Like, I mean, I tried it, and I knew it within the first take. I was like, this isn't right. But I
Yeah.
still tried it
Yeah.
again, and I was like, nope, you got to go back and do it again.
Mm,
And so the next day, I just tore those lyrics up and started from scratch and got the verses down. The chorus thing was interesting because, uh, and actually the way that those vocals sound in the chorus, um, uh, oh hey ah the devil's that whole thing uh was just me sitting back away from a microphone just like spitballing melodies
mhm. Oh.
and I that oh hey ah, da, 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 da. And I was like that's awesome, right? And so then I just sat away from the microphone and like not up on it but like away from it and
Mhm.
tracked like six more of those, and that's kind of
Yeah.
what you hear,
Mhm.
Damn right.
on the that's the vibe of the chorus, is just like me just singing, like six of me or four, three, I don't know how many there were, but like just way away from a microphone. Um, and I just kind of put it together like that, and like kind of wrote the lyrics as I went. And then I'd sing the next line. And then, that was very untraditional. And I guess this kind of plays back to your writing process thing too, your
Mhm.
question
Mhm.
about that, because
Absolutely.
you're causing me to remember things I've forgotten. Um, because I hadn't really thought about it. And then, it didn't have the piano breakdown. And I was like, oh man, this would be really fresh if this thing just went,
Mhm.
off into something else. And that's actually what kickstarted all the piano moments on the record, was that, because I got this beautiful piano thing and I brought it back around. Um, so, and then the piano builds back up, it's coming out and the drums start building. Like,
Mhm.
I did that piano build up with just piano. Like there were no drums there. It was like, you
Wow.
know,
Yeah.
okay, like, and then that scream that happens, that Run Azalea Run scream. There's a
Mhm.
that one of those screams is in the piano microphones because I just screamed when I got to the end of it.
Yeah.
I didn't really know what it was going to be.
Yeah.
And then the downfall of this is that I had to go back and retrack drums because it was like, okay, now you have to get everything to match, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
But it was a really cool way to do it, to kind of like, okay, now I'm back into the song and this guitar solo after this piano breakdown. And so yeah, that was probably the hardest one to put together, but it really kind of became like a DNA sort of template for what was to come. And so that turned it into a song like Modenheart. All of my main character songs, like Mind Control, which is Devarin's song, and Modenheart, and they each represent a character.
Mm.
Those three songs have these piano moments in them, these piano breakdowns in them that kind of became a theme for that. Like each character having this sort of introspective moment,
Mhm.
um, and then that led to the opening track, the World Unseen, which is this kind of piano guitar opening thing.
Yeah.
I had the guitar thing, the guitar lick, the first guitar lick that you hear, and the melody for that. I've had that for, man, probably I'd say like 8 years or something, and I just never
Damn.
used it. Just never
Yeah.
used it, And I was like, oh man, this is kind of a theme that,
Mhm.
that thing. I was like, let's turn that into a theme and try to use it, and and that melody that goes with it. Um, I'd had that for a minute. But
Mhm.
so yeah, Azalea kind of uh became sort of the DNA of the record in a way,
Hmm.
and so I really was like wanting that to be the single, really badly,
Mhm.
like because it's you know, but as music business people go, right? They're like, oh, well, can you cut the bridge out of it? And can you do this? And I'm like, no,
Yeah.
like that makes it just nothing. It makes it
Yeah.
every other song, right?
Exactly.
They got to sell advertising, so I
Mhm.
understand that,
Yeah.
right? But so we went with Mind Control, which is a little more straightforward.
I
But
was gonna
like
say.
Azalea is the DNA of the record.
Yeah.
Like if I
Right.
had to, if you're like, what record, what song is most representative of this record? That's the one I
Mhm.
would point to probably. Even though there's a lot of other stuff that sounds maybe nothing like it, it just feels to me like that's the one that is that holds it's like the Rosetta Stone for the record.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So if that one is the one that represents the record for you, then which one is like your favorite? Is it your
Oh yeah, yeah.
favorite
Sorry,
because of
I didn't
that?
answer that. I'm sorry.
Is it your favorite because of that, or is it
It's
your favorite at all?
it is it's the one that I probably play for people when they before anybody had heard it. Like play me something, I'd play them that.
Yeah.
Um but the one that means the most to me is Good Night, Good Night. Like
Hmm.
as far as is the one that's like hits the closest to home for me because that's actually the one like and I don't want it to pull people out of the record, but when they're listening to it, but that's the one that kind of I started writing just about me.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Oh.
that didn't really start as like a song that was maybe for this record.
Hmm.
The interesting thing about it, and I should have known at the time, right, is that like, oh, it's really easy to apply this to what I'm talking about though, because this character is feeling this way too.
Mhm.
It's like, I wonder why.
Hmm.
But that to me is about like again, I was this sort of I would say I was a happy kid, but I think I was more blissfully ignorant than happy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like I really didn't have an easy time of it with and look, I know a lot of kids, but first of all, let me before I get into this side of things,
Okay.
Hmm.
I'm not a victim of anything. Like I don't go through my life going, "Oh, woe is me, I have depression." And this,
Yeah.
it's like I just deal
Hmm.
with this shit. It's like
Exactly.
sometimes I deal with it better than other times. Sometimes I wallow in it, and I do feel sorry for myself. And sometimes,
Yeah.
but I don't really like the reason why I talk about anything depression, neurodivergent related, any of these things, this package of shit that I deal with, is to help people. That's
Mhm.
Of
like
course.
ultimately at the end of the day, it's like, you know here's how I get through it, whatever that means.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So before I start into this side of things, I just want people to know, like, I'm not sitting here being whiny, but
Hmm.
this is just the reality of it, right?
Yeah.
I had a
Gotcha.
very great, first of all, I had a great childhood. Like
Hmm.
my parents are awesome and my dad passed away. My dad was great. My mom's still alive.
Hmm.
Uh, and I have three sisters and we all had a great childhood.
Mhm.
So,
Good.
but you pick up baggage,
Yeah.
Of course.
throughout
Yeah.
your life. And I was brutally picked on as a kid. Like,
Mm.
but because of school, like I sucked. I didn't know why I sucked at school. Like fucking sucked.
Hmm.
I couldn't pay attention to anything. I couldn't
Hmm.
wrangle anything. It was like I had a notebook that I drew Transformers in, and I would just like do that all day
Yeah.
until they told me to like, I wouldn't do my homework. I wouldn't study,
Yeah.
and I wasn't stupid. I don't know. I didn't know why, but like that, like as soon as I could leave school, man, it was like, get me the fuck out of here.
Hmm.
And then I was like, I'm going outside and I'm not coming back until it's after dark and my mom has to track me down. So that part of me was like really happy, like that kid that just wanted to exist and be in the world and like play. And then as I got older, the kid that discovered guitars and
Hmm.
recording. And I mean, I thought I had I thought I had invented multi-track recording when I was a kid. I didn't
Oh.
know, like, because I went and got my sister's stereo systems. We had in the late 80s, we had like these giant stereos.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And uh each one of my sisters had one and I had one. So I went and took all of them and hooked
Hmm.
them up together. And like I would record an acoustic guitar into this one onto a cassette tape. And then I realized, oh, I can come out of this with that thing playing and I can record into this one at the same. So I'd build these recordings
Yeah.
thinking I'd like invented this thing, right?
Yeah.
And then my mom's like, no, they have things that do that. And
Damn.
like, so, so my parents ended up getting me like a little multi-track, four-track recorder.
Aw.
But like
Yeah.
that kid that like was like full of wonder and joy and all this stuff at some point,
Hmm.
probably, during high school or just after high school had this thing descend upon him, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
in this depression, and come to find out, like and I don't find these things out until I'm in my late 40s, but like, oh, dude, you've got ADD, autism, executive dysfunction. These things make you feel a certain way about yourself and about the world.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, it contributes to your depression. And this,
Mm-hmm.
so I find these things out later,
Yeah.
right? But I didn't know what I was dealing with at the time. I didn't know that's why everything kind of crushed down on me, and continues to do so. Even though I know these things now, it's still, you
Mm-hmm.
can't escape it. It's like it's there.
Of course.
Um, so I wrote Good Night" about saying goodnight to that kid that
Mm-hmm.
you were, and like, you know, uh, and just trying to do it in a, kind of a quirky musical kind of way, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the chorus, but never mind that part of you got left behind. Happiness is hard to find. I must have flushed it with the pills because I took myself off all my antidepressants like years ago,
Yeah.
and that's what that line's about. But um, uh, so carry on. Don't look back. Those days are gone. And then you get to the good night, and he says, "I hope you're standing arm in arm with the things that did you harm."
Mm-hmm.
Meaning like the happy kid who didn't give a shit about people being mean to him and stuff, right? And I hope
Yeah.
that you have a good night. So, but the thing is that is so applicable to Milk, like our
Mm-hmm.
our main protagonist. It's like he's saying, he has this childhood that he's trying to remember, that this name and this family and this thing that he just has to say goodnight to. And again, that's the song I was listening to when I had that realization of like, fuck, man, you have just like dumped all of your baggage into these characters, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the song that means the most to me. Um, Interesting fact about that song too, for like the rock opera part of it, is
Yeah.
if you listen to it, Good Night" has the exact same chorus melody as Mind Control, and they're back to back on the record. Like
That's wonderful.
you can sing the Mind Control chorus over Good Night, and you can sing Good Night" chorus over Mind Control. It's the
Yeah.
exact same melody, except for that one sort of half step lift at the end of the chorus, and that moves through the middle of Good Night. But that's the only thing. But I did that intentionally. I'm like, I'm going to give this the same melody as Mind Control. That'll be fun.
Yeah.
So that was a cool experiment too. It's like, I'm gonna write what would happen if I could just steal my own melody and like put it in this other song? And then you listen to them back to back and you don't really realize it. I don't think
Mm-hmm.
about it half the time anymore. But
It's
there we
nice.
go. That's
Yeah.
probably my favorite song. I also like All Good Children too. That one's I think that one is a for me, this visual of these kids who, and I'm trying not to give too much away about the story, but
Okay.
these kids, a lot of these kids, grow up in this prison camp, and then they escape. They have a way to get out,
Mm-hmm.
and when they get out, they go to this place called Burden, and
Mm-hmm.
Burden is like a camp where they're fighting this insurgency, and Azalea heads up this insurgency.
Yeah.
Um, and but at some point, the kids in Burden like get sick. They're like, we gave up one shitty life for another one, so to speak. Like, and
Mm-hmm.
they're kind of like singing to Azalea in a way. It's like, it's like why, yeah, I mean, we're better off, but are we? We're like, we're
Yeah.
still dying and we're still, what are
Mm-hmm.
we fighting for, right?
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, but I kind of dig that song too, just for that purpose. And I don't know. I like the vibe of it.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, love it.
Wonderful.
So this question should be super, super quick off the top of your head. I want you to describe this album for new listeners in 3 words, no more, no less.
Eccentric, emotional journey.
Nice.
Ooh. Nice.
I was
Wonderful.
hoping
How's
you'd keep with the E pattern, but
Yeah.
that was good
It's
too.
okay.
Hey man, look, I can only do so much. I apologize.
Yeah, I got you. I got you.
I apologize.
And are you able to touch on any particularly challenging or standout moments during the creation of the album, positive or negative?
Oh man. Yeah, I so remember that moment that this is a negative moment,
Mm-hmm.
and there weren't a lot of like anytime you're making a record, you're doing it wrong if you don't go to bed certain nights going, I'm a fraud. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
Like
Mm-hmm.
any artist, like Mel Brooks. You guys know what Inside the Actors Studio is? That show that used to come on. It was
No,
this guy.
I don't think I know that.
James Lipton was the guy's name, and he ran, and it's still there,
Mm-hmm.
a high art school for actors called the Actors Studio,
Mm-hmm.
in New York, and these people, young people, old people, doesn't matter. You go there to learn how to be a great actor,
Mm-hmm.
and so he had a television show he would do where he would invite in producers and directors and actors and actresses to speak, and he would James Lipton would interview them on stage, and the kid the students would be in the audience, and they could ask questions and stuff. But he always had this I think it was 10 questions he would ask at the end of every interview. He'd ask everybody the same 10 questions.
Yeah.
And one of those questions is, what is your biggest fear? And he asked Mel Brooks, and you guys probably don't know who Mel Brooks is either. He's one of the greatest. Mel Brooks is one of the greatest comedic minds of all time, like director, writer. He wrote The Producers. He wrote Spaceballs. All these.
I know Spaceballs.
And he's in space. He's Yogurt in Spaceballs, right?
Mhm.
Like, that's Mel Brooks.
Yeah.
But he was interviewing him, and he said, "What is your biggest fear?" And Mel Brooks said that everyone will find out I'm a fraud. And like that hit me like really hard because, and then Clint Lowry from Seven Dust and I were talking on the phone one day or text or something while I was making this record, and he was making his solo record too, and he said the same type of thing. He said, I said, "How's it going?" He goes, "Man, one day I'm a hero, the next I'm a fraud," and I'm like, dude, that is like it right there.
Story of my life. Yeah.
And yeah. So I think you're doing it wrong if you don't have those moments of feeling like a fraud, or feeling like if you don't go to bed certain days and you're like, I'm the worst at this that has ever existed, and I want to quit, and I'm never going to get it back.
Yeah.
And then you wake up the next morning, you can't wait to get out there and fix whatever the thing was, right?
Yep.
Like
Yeah.
that's it. That's how we conduct our business, most of us. So, but that being said, I had that moment of when I said I listened through the songs and realized I didn't have what I needed. I thought I had what I needed. I thought I had like this compelling thing, ready to put out into the world. And I had standing right outside of the studio here, and I had my headphones in, kind of listening through rough mixes. And then that moment that I realized that I didn't have what I need, I physically felt my depression happen. Like it's happened a couple of times where I like physically feel like the chemicals in my brain change over the course of a few seconds, like 10 seconds of like everything's fine. And I was down there for like a month. Like it was just like this. That like, oh man, I don't have a record and I can't do this, and so it's, I made it sound very simplistic earlier when I said that I realized I didn't have what I needed, so I wrote some more songs. Well, it took me like a month to like get to a place where I was like, okay, I want to go try now to write some more songs. So I was so depressed that I had failed, right? I failed this whole process, and this, because basically what I had was this kind of dirgy record, it was like it was lacking some stuff, and so I just beat myself up about that. And then, man, then you have those moments of like, and they're very fleeting when you've made something that so intimately well. It's very hard you'll never really hear it or see it or anything as an outsider. Like you always know, how the sausage is made, what's in there. But every once in a while, when I'm doing a mix, I have a moment of like chills. It's like, like you kind of and if that happens, that means that it's going to be, if someone loves what you've made, it's going to be that times 1,000 for them, right? And it's like, it's just, and they're so quick, man. Like every once in a while, I have a moment, and it's, I would say it's 3 or 4 times a year, probably, maybe more than that, maybe 5 or 6 times a year, where like I hear back something I've made, I see something I've made, and I actually pat myself on the back. Like I'll literally do this and be like, man, that's really awesome. You did a great job on that. Take it, like take this in for half a second. Like that's an amazing moment. And those happen, those types of moments happened on this record quite, not super frequently, but I think, when the first time I listened back to the sort of not necessarily mixed, but like kind of vocals are done, that piano breakdown in Azalea. When the first time I listened back to that, sorry, I think the yard guys are out. I don't know if you guys can hear the leaf blower going outside of my door.
No, we're good.
But the first time I listened back to that, it was like I'd never really heard my voice sound like that before. Because I'm backup singing most nights with the band, right? I'm like just on 10, loud as I can sing all night. you know, there was something really magical about that moment and going, wow, man, this is kind of special. This is pretty neat, you
Mhm.
know? So that was a great moment. And those types of things happened every once in a while. Um, you know, where I mean, it's a very, very, very satisfying feeling to sit back and listen to something completed,
Mhm.
you
Absolutely.
know,
Yeah.
and listen to it from beginning to end and go,
Mhm.
this is finished.
Yeah.
There's nothing else I can do to this, you know,
Mhm.
and so those are all great moments. So there's a couple.
Hell yeah, that's
Wonderful.
great. And for this last question, I want you to picture you're on tour, you're at a gas station for a rest stop. What is your snack of choice?
Honey roasted peanuts.
Damn. Off the bat, just honey roasted peanuts. You
I
got
I
any drinks or
love
anything?
I love dude, I graze. I'm a grazer. I
Mhm.
do it every day of my life. I don't really eat lunch.
Yeah.
And
Same.
I don't really eat breakfast. Like I'll get up and I'll graze.
Mhm.
And the I love nuts, man. Like
Mhm.
I love peanuts, I love cashews, I
Yep.
love pistachios.
Fucking love
It's
pistachios. Yeah.
it's why I can't lose weight because I eat all this high fat stuff all the time.
Yeah.
And it's like you think like, oh, you're just eating handful. No, I'm eating like bags of these things, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So like it's like my airport thing too is honey roasted peanuts. Like give me
Honey roasted.
But
and I won't just buy one package of them. I'll buy like 5 packages of
Mhm.
them.
Yeah. Stock
they're
So
up.
perfect for grazing because
yeah,
they're filling enough.
yeah,
Mhm.
dude. Or peanut butter is the thing I have to watch out for too. Like I'll just
Ooh. Yeah.
spoon like
Just a
instead
spoonful.
instead of dinner, I'll just do this.
Yeah.
And then like
Absolutely.
and then I look down, I've eaten half a jar of peanut butter. It's probably 8,000 calories. And you know, that's how I live my life. I'm a heathen, you know. I don't I have no my wife is the only reason why I actually sit down and like eat meals because she likes
Mhm.
to like eat meals for
Yeah.
dinner. It's like we'll cook a steak or something, you know.
Mhm.
But like my wife, she went out of town. She rides horses, so she went out of town to a horse show
Mhm.
a couple of days ago, and the whole time she was gone, I ate nuts
Mhm.
and Hershey's Kisses
No
and
way.
nuts and Hershey's Kisses and wheat thins with peanut butter on them. That's what I ate the whole time she
Wow.
was gone. That's it. That's all I
That's
had to
so
eat.
awesome.
Yeah.
You know, and like I just don't think about eating very often. So I graze. So yeah, my truck stop for sure, man.
Mhm.
I'm going right to the peanuts. Planners, honey roasted peanuts.
Yeah.
There's also some other crack stuff that people make nut wise that I've discovered.
Mhm.
Planners makes these cinnamon cashews now that ta
Ooh.
that
That's dangerous.
that
Yeah.
taste like pancakes, which is
Mhm.
like stupid. They
Mhm.
also make my wife found these. They're they're for Christmas, I guess, but they're like a hot chocolate cashew, but
Ooh.
it tastes like Cocoa Pebbles or Cocoa Puffs.
Oh.
Yeah, and I'm just like, oh man, this is so bad.
Yeah.
And then somewhere along the line, she found sea salt and vinegar peanuts.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like,
Ooh.
I'm like,
Yeah.
man, like this is
Mhm.
bad. I'm never gonna lose weight ever again, you know.
Hey, if
So
that's the price to pay, I don't
it
know, man. I'm right
is.
there
Yeah.
with you. I'm
It
right there
is,
with
man.
you.
Look, it's not like I haven't ballooned up to any like substantial weight, but like it
Mhm.
could easily happen at this
Yeah.
I
point for
mean,
sure.
if you think about it, it's a little bit healthier than like living your life eating potato chips and like grazing on the junk food. Like
Yeah.
nuts, you know, they're healthier.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Healthy
yeah, right. Well,
enough.
that's what I tell myself. I'm like,
Mhm.
you know, I have some friends who are like trainers and stuff, and they're like, well, oh,
Mhm.
you just eat a handful. I'm like, you don't understand, man. That
No,
is
no,
not
no.
possible.
By the
Like that's not
bagfuls,
happening.
man. Yeah.
You know, I think Emerald nuts, right? They make this
Mhm.
the salt and pepper cashews, and I'm like, just like you can't just eat a handful of salt and pepper cashews. Like, you know, I gotta eat
No.
the bag
Yeah.
of them,
Exactly.
you know,
Yeah.
and I will fill myself up on this stuff. And then,
Yeah.
you know, like I'm telling you, man, like I'm probably at 4,000 calories a day of nuts at this point.
Mm. Damn.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
I found
Yeah.
like pickle cashews the other day. That
Oh
shit
yeah.
changed my
That's the
life.
same. So that's
Yeah.
planners, right? That's the thing.
Yeah.
They make
Yeah.
dill pickle. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
insane.
So try next time you're in. They always have them in airports, but
Mhm.
like they're in like this. I might have a bag of them out here probably.
Shout
They're in
out.
like this like rust colored bag. It's like a cinnamon colored bag, and they're the
Mhm.
cinnamon cashews.
Mhm.
Just it'll be the worst thing you ever do, but the best thing you ever do too.
Best thing
Because
ever.
it's yeah,
Yeah.
it's like dessert cashews.
I'm so excited. I'll be in an airport this weekend, so I'll keep an
Yeah.
eye
I
out.
was
Oh,
gonna
you'll
say
find
Glory's in
them.
airports all the time.
Yeah.
Wherever they have those dill pickle ones, they have the other ones for
Yeah,
sure.
right next to him.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
I'll
because
keep
I
an
like
eye
the
out.
dill pickle ones too. They're
Mhm.
good. but like there's something about the cinnamon ones, man. Oh, you can get them on Amazon too. My wife found them on Amazon now, so it's just like
See,
we
that's
just
dangerous now. Yeah, yeah. You have that
Glory-
shit on
Bad.
auto reorder.
Yeah,
Ooh.
Yeah.
you got to try them and let me know how they are, Glory.
Oh,
it's
100%. Come on.
it's terrible. So how about you? I'm gonna turn it around. So what makes you guys tick, like musically? Like what's Lori? What's your thing?
What's my thing for music?
Yeah, like what's your favorite thing in music right now? What's your favorite thing in music?
Oh, my favorite artist, my
I
favorite
don't know,
band.
just thing. It doesn't
Fuck.
have to be artist. Like, what's your favorite thing? I know
Okay,
that's broad. How's that?
yeah, okay, that's very broad. I'm gonna tell you my favorite band. My
Okay.
favorite band is Don Broco. My
Okay.
favorite artist is Tyler the Creator. So I really like artsy, out of the box type of music.
Yeah.
That's one of the main reasons why I clicked with your album because, as you said, it's more on the artsier side. And I really like that type of shit. So
Awesome.
just stuff that kind of catches your ear, lots of ear candy, which is
Mm,
more of the, again, Don Broco, Tyler the Creator type thing, where it's like
yeah.
you could tell that they put a lot of time, layers, effort, thought into the music. It's not just kind of like cut dry, just like this is what it is and that's it, surface level shit. It's
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
dig, there's always going to be more stuff.
You gotta
So,
dig in. Yeah, I
yeah,
love that. How about you, Shane? What's your jam, man? What makes you
your
happy?
jam.
So I'm a big fan of metalcore. So
Yeah.
the current thing going on where like at the octane core they call it with the big fucking choruses. I'm a
Yeah.
sucker for a big chorus. So
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
of the songs coming out right now, like especially stuff from like Memphis Mayfire and Make Them Suffer, has been like what's making me tick. But I also absolutely adore bands like Korn, and I'm wearing a Limp Bizkit hoodie. So
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Dude.
Biscuit bumping.
But yeah, like the new Cane Hill and the new Make Them Suffer is what's
Ooh,
been making
Cane
me
Hill.
tick.
Mm.
Mhm.
Okay, I see. I need to. You guys have to like send me all of this stuff so I know what to get. I'm
Oh,
always
yeah.
I'm always looking for new stuff, man. I'm always looking for new music to like
Mhm.
to something to make me like. I don't know if it's a. I look, I'm old, okay? Like that, like at the end of the day, I'm not like I don't feel old, but like technically I am. Like I turned
Mhm.
50 a couple of weeks ago.
Happy birthday.
Happy late birthday.
Thanks. Yeah, but one of the things, I'm an album person. I always have been.
Mhm.
So like I don't have playlists on Spotify. I don't have I mean I have I have Apple Music. I have Apple Music for Christmas time so I can put it on in the background. So I can put Christmas music on in the background.
Wonderful,
Literally,
yeah.
that's why I got Apple Music.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
But like I still buy records. So like I try to
Mm-hmm.
find a record that I can buy and just like immerse myself in just the same way I always
Absolutely.
have. So it's not I don't know a lot about a lot of artists, but
Mhm.
like I love finding that one that's like that I'm just super into and like
Mhm.
and kind of digging in on it. And so that's good to hear, man. Like I'm always trying to find some and I like interesting things, you know.
Yeah.
I don't just want like this stock level thing. Like I
Mm-mm.
want something that's gonna like twist my brain around a little bit and make me think creatively. That's what I'm really looking
Exactly.
for at the end of the day. So
Yeah.
um
Are
well,
you
thanks for sharing that stuff.
yeah, are you
Mhm.
familiar
Of
with the
course.
band Avatar?
I am.
Because that
Yeah.
Gloria and I were talking, and I was like, this record kind of has elements of why I like that band
Oh, cool.
so
Thank
much.
you.
So that
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
know if you were familiar with them at all.
Well, here's the thing. I'm not familiar with their music necessarily. I know who the band
Mhm.
is.
Yeah.
But again, I don't get out much, guys. Like I mean, I'm like always in the studio. And I also have this thing about like when I'm working on music, I try not to listen to too much music when I'm working on a record because
Mhm.
um uh I've gotten in trouble in the past unintentionally with like earworms, right? Like
Yep.
something from something else sneaking in, and then like
Mhm.
I come up for air after I've worked really hard on something, only to realize that shit, that melody that I've got is this melody. I'll
Yeah.
tell you here. This is a great story. Here, we can end on this.
Okay.
My
Mhm.
record had a whole other theme, melodic theme that worked through it,
Okay.
and it was this really beautiful melody that I like. I was like, and I played it on the piano one day. I was like, God, man, that is so great, and
Mhm.
I can work it in. I had these orchestral moments where it happened that like maybe between songs I had this because I do some orchestral scoring and stuff too,
Mhm.
and like it was piano notes in certain parts, and it's just beautiful melody.
Mhm.
And one of my favorite bands is Nothing More,
Hell
and
yeah.
Ooh, yeah. Mhm.
so on one of their records, a couple of records ago.
Mhm.
Uh, I was there's a guitar interlude on that record, and I hadn't listened to it in a minute. And it's not a
Mhm.
song, it's just a guitar interlude. And I
Yeah.
was like, that's that melody. And so
Yeah.
I had to undo all of that. And I told Mark about it. Mark from
Yeah.
Bethlehem. I was like,
Yeah.
dude, like I literally had to like disassemble half of my record because I realized that it was your melody that I had in my head. So, and again, I have like so much integrity with things. Like I'm not just gonna go, so what? You know, it's like,
Yeah.
no, that's like, you know. So I when I'm making music and making records and writing, I try not to listen to too much stuff because I'm a sponge like that, man, and it can be really bad, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
But when I'm not working on music, like I like things that make me want to work on music. I guess and
Absolutely.
that's what I'm looking for with like artists. That's why I'm asking you who you're listening to, because it's like,
Mhm.
you know, I want to find people that make me want to make things and to create, you know,
Absolutely.
like you hear something fresh that you've never heard before and you're like, oh man, again, that's that fraud moment. I suck
Mhm.
so bad. Why didn't I think, like, I'm
I
so
didn't think of
unoriginal.
that.
Listen to this thing,
Yeah.
you know. And I kind of like that, where it's like, oh man, I'm hearing, like you mentioned Corn earlier. I mean, like
Mhm.
I was born in like this really, I was probably born in, I have to say this, in the most amazing time for art and movies and
Mhm.
music,
Hmm.
Absolutely.
because the only thing I missed was like the late 60s, early 70s stuff.
Yeah.
But I was born in 74. So like I
Mhm.
kind of came up listening to some really interesting stuff that my mom had in the house.
Mhm.
But then, man, I hit the 80s. I was 10 years old in 84,
Hmm.
Yeah.
right? And so it's like I get all the ahas and Van Halens and hair
Mhm.
metal. Hair metal made me want to play guitar. And then
Yeah.
I heard Talk Dirty to Me on the radio. That's why I wanted to play guitar. I heard
Mhm.
Poison, and I was like, ah, fuck, yeah, man, that sounds so
I gotta do
awesome,
that.
you
Yeah.
know. And then I, you know, reverse discovered Metallica and you know,
Mhm.
and Justice. And look, the Black Album came out when I was in high school. Nirvana's Nevermind came out when I was in high school. Pearl Jam
Ooh.
10 came out when I was in high school. Soundgarden Bad Motorfinger came out when I was in high school. Uh, you know, and so I've had this like fantastic musical journey of like being in the right place at the right time and hearing like
Absolutely.
all of these artists that made you go like dude, the first time I heard Pantera, I'd never heard anything like it. You know,
Yeah.
Mhm.
like that's a sound that only they make. And
Mhm.
the first time that I heard the first Korn record, I remember
Hmm.
exactly where I was standing. I was standing in my band. My band just had band practice. I was standing in the practice space,
Yeah.
and my drummer went, "You got to hear this band," you know.
Aw.
And
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it was just like, you know, those things that make you stop in your tracks because you've never heard something like that before.
Hmm.
Mhm.
That's what I'm after. Like that's what I like to, and hopefully, you know, like hopefully one day I can create something like that, right? But
Mhm.
it's like, but those are the things that make me like excited. And then once I
Mhm.
start into the creative process, I have to put it all away because then it's like, no earworms. I don't need that in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, but but yeah, so I appreciate you all sharing that stuff because it's like I want, you know, now I
Yeah.
have things to go check out, right?
Oh
And
yeah.
I've heard Tyler the Creator before for
Of
sure.
course. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's
Um,
fucking massive.
what's that? And again, I'm old, so I don't know who this is.
Mhm.
There's an Instagram rapper that just put a video out with Kanye and Kim's daughter in it. Like East West was Internet East West, isn't that her name?
Northwest, I think.
Northwest.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Dude, it's something
No,
fucking like
dude,
that.
there's this internet rapper and he's kind of quirky
Mhm.
and they just dropped a video or something and it's one of the cool, it has these puppets in cars that are like driving these, it's almost like Mario Kart with like puppets and they're driving like what look like Northwest and the rapper, they're driving like these um they look like cyber trucks sort
Yeah.
of, dude,
Is
it's
it
in,
You Know Miles?
yes dude, it's in,
What the? Okay.
no, but
Yeah,
here,
yeah.
check, but like, I know the guy's kind of a joke because I started following him, right? I'm
He
like,
is. Yeah,
yeah,
he's
yeah,
fucking
yeah.
awesome.
But
Yeah.
here's the thing, that video
Mhm.
is so original
Yeah.
that I'm like, that made me go, oh man, because I just started making videos, right? Like, I
Yeah.
think I'm going to continue to make music videos and probably short
Incredible.
films because I really enjoy it.
That's great.
And I saw that and I'm like, oh man, dude, that's like next level, like weird
Yeah.
and cool and
Yeah.
like, it inspires me. I'm like, that makes me want to go make something weird and cool,
Absolutely.
That's so
you
Yeah.
know?
awesome.
And so that's what I'm always looking for with like anything artistic, man, is like what is gonna make me go like turn my head sideways and go like,
Like, oh,
what the
what is
fuck is
this?
that? You know?
Yeah.
Like because that's the progression, man. That's what I want.
Mhm.
But anyway,
Yeah.
I've run my mouth enough about that. But
No,
I appreciate you all
that's
sharing.
awesome.
Of
Yeah,
course.
of course.
Well, that's all the questions we have for you today. Is there anything that you would like to plug?
I Had a Name comes out February 28th. I don't know when this is airing, but Azalea should be out now. Mind Control is out now. Go check out the videos. Eric Bass Presents on YouTube. Eric Bass Presents on X and TikTok, I believe. eBass Prod on Instagram. That's really how I do. That's the only social media I really deal with myself personally. But anything you need to know, eBass Prod. Eric Bass Presents I Had a Name, February 28th. Also working on a new Shinedown record that'll be out next year. We should have some singles coming out soon too. So, all of the above. Check it out.
Hell yeah.
Wonderful.
All right. Well, thank you for now. It's been Eric Bass, and we have been the Good Noise Podcast.